Hey comic book fans, so about 2 years ago I gave you my grand review / retrospective of Smallville, and ever since I did that video I have been dying to do a review on Superman and Lois, one of my favorite TV shows of all time, but I wanted to wait until that show was actually 100% done because, there's plenty of times that a CW show will start good and then end up being a CW show. So I wanted to do it now that the show has finally wrapped up earlier this year with season 4, its fourth and final season, and maybe saved its best for last actually. So we're going to break it all down. We're going to do the exact same thing that I did with the Smallville video. I'll give you a brief little intro of the show, as well as my history and interaction with the show, the best things about the show, what I thought were some of the weaker aspects of the show, the best episodes, and we'll round it out by talking about the best moments from Superman and Lois. But before we get into all that, what are your thoughts on Superman and Lois? Did you like it? Did you not? Did you check it out? Have you never heard of it? And also, I gotta give the warning now, we're gonna go into full spoilers in order to talk about the goods and the bads of this show. Talking no holds barred here. With all that out of the way, let's talk Superman and Lois. So this show debuted officially in 2021, and it's interesting because I was watching Smallville at the exact same time as this, like watching it for the first time, not really having any knowledge of Smallville. I came into it much later. Heather and I were watching Smallville while new episodes of Superman and Lois were happening. We didn't know it at the time, but it was a fun parallel because Smallville is the origin and leading up to Clark becoming Superman, and Superman and Lois is the twilight years of Superman. Not necessarily his prime, but it's after the prime of what happens in an era of Superman that we don't tell stories about as much. But I was not necessarily looking forward to it, just seeing the little clips. I was like, I think Tyler has potential as Superman, but they're not doing him any favors on Supergirl here. Then I heard that the basic premise of the show is that Superman and Lois have moved back to Smallville with their twin sons, which I was raising an eyebrow to that, going, that's so interesting premise. Plus, it was going to be on the CW, which is, not known for its high production quality, and I do not fault the writers at all. I know they have small budget to work with, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't always look the best or written the best. So I went in with a lot of caution. What ended up happening though is I saw the first 5 minutes of the pilot episode and I never looked back. That first 5 minutes of the show is some of the best Superman material I have ever seen in live action form. It cuts straight to the heart of what makes Superman so special and immediately got me locked into the rest of the show. It's so well done. I still just go back to that opening scene time and time again going, wow, they get it. They get it. Let's talk about some of the big positives here. First and foremost, Tyler Hoechlin is Superman. I didn't know how it would be coming off the heels of what I didn't necessarily love is his portrayal in Supergirl. But Superman and Lois, after the first season alone, I'm going, this is my favorite version of Superman in live action form. Yeah, Christopher Reeve is great, Henry Cavill has had some great moments, but Tyler Hoechlin is what I've been looking for in a Superman for a very long time. In an old interview, an interviewer once asked Christopher Reeve, what is Superman to people? And without hesitation, he said, a friend. And that is exactly what Tyler Hoechlin's Superman comes across as. He seems like a person that you would know. He's a kind soul. He's a friend. He's that type of person that anyone goes to. They know this person. They're friends with this person. That's what Superman is supposed to be. He is Clark first and foremost, and this show focuses on both the Clark and the Superman side of things, but it's his relationship to other people. That's always been the strong suit of Superman. He has friends, he has family, he's a good-hearted person that you just like to be around. He's a huge dork. That is an element of Clark that I have been sorely missing in recent Superman media, but now, between this and My Adventures of Superman, we're getting dorky, nerdy Clark again, and that makes me very, very happy. That's an aspect of the character that I just really love, because at the end of the day, he's a goofy, awkward farm boy. That's what Clark is, and I love him for it. And on a much more personal note, Heather and I earlier this year actually went to our first convention in Orlando here, and we're just like, I'm going first and foremost because Tyler Hoechlin is there, and I wanted to see him, just say how great of a Superman he was. It was our first actual photo op we'd ever done with a celebrity. And guys, I was so happy to know that he is just as cool in real life as he is on the screen. He was so pleasant. They're shuttling you super fast for any photo ops in any conventions, but he really made sure to take the time with every single person taking a picture to make them feel special. He made eye contact with us, shook hands, genuinely seemed happy to meet us and have this interaction with us. It just warmed my heart. It made my day going, okay, I'm glad that he knows that being Superman is not just an on-screen thing. It kind of stays with you forever. That was a burden that followed Christopher Reeve. It follows Henry Cavill still to this day. This expectation that you are a good person off screen as well. But the show is only as good as its supporting cast besides just Superman. And the supporting cast, for the most part, is really, really good. Elizabeth Tulloch kind of took a little bit to grow on me as Lois Lane, just because I really, really liked Erica Durance from Smallville as Lois Lane. But over time, I'm going, okay, I get what they're going for this version of Lois, and I really, really like it. This show is called Superman and Lois for a reason. It's the pair of them. It's the family dynamic. How does the pair of them between Clark and Lois interact with both their kids? I was very hesitant about the whole twins angle, because in the comics, you really just have Jonathan. Jordan's not really a thing, so I was kind of wondering about Jordan, but I liked both of them. They're really, really strong, and I like that they didn't manufacture drama between the family or between the boys. A lot of the interactions just genuinely felt like a family. The brothers weren't constantly at each other's throats, no more than just regular brothers. They seemed like actual friends. I get tired of the infighting in families and dramas just for the sake of it. They felt like an actual family unit, and which is just refreshing to see. Another thing that I was very pleasantly surprised by with Superman and Lois is Dan Romer's exceptional score throughout all 4 seasons of the show. It is hard to have a Superman theme that's not just the John Williams music. I actually really, really enjoy what Hans Zimmer did with Man of Steel. I thought he crushed it, but a lot of the times people fall back on, well, we just use the John Williams because that's the Superman theme. Even Smallville kind of did that to a certain extent. But Superman and Lois never falls into that trap. They 100% commit to fresh and original music that still has that Superman feel to it. It's powerful. It's emotionally stirring. It has great buildup. Whenever I hear the horns in the Superman and Lois theme, I just sink back into that happy place. The music is so powerful and so well done. I also love that this show was clearly made by people that love Superman. There's so many little Easter eggs and references that you would not get unless you were a die-hard fan of Superman. There is a lot of Superman for All Seasons references throughout this show, which just makes my heart happy because it's my favorite comic of all time. You have Superman and Lois founding the For All Seasons charity in the finale, which is a nice little touch that I definitely missed on my first watch. You have one of my favorite scenes in comic book history of Superman saves the little kid, and he goes, "Oh, cool costume. Thanks. My mom made it for me." That moment alone sold me on all of Superman and Lois. But then they take little Easter eggs and references from all previous Superman medium and meld it into one and make it still believable. There is references to both Zack Snyder's Justice League and Superman 3 with Richard Pryor in the show, and both of them make sense. The finale recreates that slow-mo shot from when Steppenwolf is fighting Superman, and it works there. That one's a little obvious. But the one that I'm like, wait a second, are you doing what I think you're doing? Is they more or less lift the freezing a lake to defuse a nuclear power plant or a fire or whatever's happening here from Superman 3 with Richard Pryor, which is not necessarily a beloved Superman outing. It's not a very good movie, but the fact that they're sprinkling these little Easter eggs going, Superman fans will recognize this. And as a fan, I felt rewarded for it. It has good storytelling because they know the source material. They're going, okay, here's what people know about Superman. We're going to tweak it. We're going to play with it. It's still going to be what you know and love, but we're going to change things up a little bit. And that's one of the things that I really, really absolutely loved about Superman and Lois is here's the canon that you know and love, but we're going to change things. We're going to get to the way that you know it eventually, but we're going to take you on a journey to get there. Like case in point, the first episode, we meet a stranger that we think is Lex Luthor. We're going, oh, interesting, this guy comes in a suit of armor and it's Lex. If they chose to go that route, it would still make a lot of sense, but it's only revealed a few episodes later that that's John Henry Irons. I'm going, oh, that was a cool subversion of expectation, but it still lines up with what we know in the previously established comics. Or the Bizarro/Doomsday twist. When Bizarro shows up in the beginning of season 2, I'm going, oh, that's a choice, because it looks like we're running into Doomsday already in only the second season, but we find out it's not Doomsday, it's Bizarro. I'm going, oh, okay, so we're changing things up a little bit. Only for Lex to take Bizarro and kill him over and over and over again, to the point that he becomes Doomsday. A big part of Doomsday's origin in the comics is dying repeatedly, and he can't be killed the same way again twice. They basically did copy what they did in the comics, except just took a long way to get there, and it was a cool subversion of expectations, going, oh, okay, I thought I knew where this was going. And that's one of the best things about this show, is you think you know where it's going. Case in point, the final season, they really teed up the fact that this would be the death of Superman's story arc, and I thought I knew where it was going. But there were so many twists and turns in the path that when we finally get to the end of it, I'm going, oh, this is not where I thought we'd end up at all. This is so much better than anything that I could have imagined. I should have trusted the writers here. They take the viewer on a journey, and that's all I could ever ask from a good storyteller. And I absolutely love, for the most part, stuff that they do on Superman and Lois. And like I said earlier, I did not watch Superman and Lois or Smallville by myself. I had my wonderful wife Heather watching along with me through the entire journey, so she wanted to chime in and give her own unique takes on what made this show so incredibly special.
I really enjoyed Superman and Lois. It was an awesome series to watch with Nathan, and here are some things why I think you should watch it too. This series is really easy to enjoy whether you've seen any material of Superman or any of the characters. It's easy to catch up on or learn more about. It's a great family show. Again, it's not all about, Superman and the villains and just the characters involved. You can enjoy it just as it is, as a family show. I love the characters. Their characters are very well written, especially Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. If you know anything about how Clark is and how Superman is as two different identities, I'm not sure if he had any background knowledge before going into this series or prior experience with Superman, but he just has this confidence but not cockiness about him. It makes you curious to know, oh, if you're not familiar, oh wait, I want to know more about Superman. I want to know about his character. I want to know why he wants to help people and why he wants to serve his community and the world and all that. He's just a really good portrayal of who Superman and Clark Kent are. So I have seen Tyler Hoechlin in many things beforehand, and just the way he portrays his characters in general are very genuine and very real. I think he does this on purpose. For example, I grew up watching Seventh Heaven, and he wasn't in like the early seasons. He was in later seasons, but as he came along, he was pretty young, but he was a believable actor. He was trying to be this all around like good character or good guy, good teenager. He wanted to be helpful. He just portrayed that role very well. I really believe that this series is for anybody. There are a lot of themes and a lot of topics discussed that anyone can relate to. There are things about family drama, action scenes, whether Superman is fighting or saving other people's lives. He does a lot with his family, and he is always there for his sons. They're as teenagers. He is just a good role model. You can see how, whether they were at home, taking care of his family, taking care of his wife when she was going through a lot, and also just his community. The show showcased Smallville like no other. It was such a good representation of small town and just how everyone can work together as a community. It's just something I really feel like anyone could get something out of. It made me happy. I know there are times where I felt like I was going to just tear up because it's like, it was very emotional, or there were some like, oh my gosh, like when there were some crazy scenes with some fights or some like moments that you're like, on the edge of like, what's going to happen next, especially if there's going to be a next episode and you're like, oh, we had to wait for it. It was always fun and exciting, and it's really, there's a good variety that anyone could pick something out that they like from it.
However, as much as I like Superman and Lois, it isn't without its fault. So let's go into some of my negatives for the show. First and foremost, as much as I love Superman and Lois and the twins as the main characters of the show, I can't always say the same about the supporting cast. Case in point, the Cushings. I didn't hate the Cushings, but by and large, I never really cared to see them on my screen either. You got like Lana, and Chrissy was roped in at some point, especially in the later seasons, but most importantly, Kyle. I never cared to see Kyle on my screen. I didn't dislike the character, but I just was never emotionally attached or interested in any of his storylines, and it's not a credit or disservice at all to the actor. I think he was doing his absolute best with given his circumstances, given the material he had to work with. It just constantly felt like filler, like we have to have a B plot in here somewhere. I kept holding out hope that I would be emotionally attached to them at some point, but it just never happened. They were just there. I always kind of wanted to fast forward to the next Kent-related scene. When it comes to any comic book adaptation, the superhero is only as good as its supervillain, and I think at times Superman and Lois kind of struggles with its villains. Morgan Edge was not necessarily the most compelling villain to me, or when they revealed him to be Tal-Rho, I was like, it's fine. Not necessarily the most interesting. Allie Alston in season 2 was even worse. I thought she was a very unmemorable villain. I don't think it's until we get to Bruno Mannheim in season 3 and get some Bizarro a little bit in season 2 that we actually have somewhat decent villains. But the show focuses so much on its hero that I wish that the villain situation was a little better. Earlier I mentioned that this show was spun out of Supergirl, and I'm still kind of curious if that's the case or not. Case in point, I asked constantly, is this in the Arrowverse or not? So the universe it spawned, Arrow, The Flash, Black Lightning, Supergirl, all of those shows, is this connected to it or not? Because even the show, it felt like, couldn't make up its mind. You had Diggle, the perennial fan favorite from Arrow, in the show a few times. It wasn't like a one-off. He was on the show a few times, which makes me go, oh, okay, so this is connected to the Arrowverse. But there's never a mention of Supergirl. Not that she has to show up, but it's kind of weird that you don't. But the big one that made me go, wait, hold up. Is this Arrowverse or not? Is you had Tom Cavanaugh, most famously for being Reverse Flash in the Flash TV show, show up in the 4th and final season of Superman and Lois, not as Reverse Flash, but as TV personality G. Gordon Godfrey, which, don't get me wrong, cool seeing G. Gordon Godfrey. I like that character. He's obnoxious. He's entertaining, like, D-level comic book character that I always like seeing that Easter egg in there. But you could have gone with any actor. Why did you have to go with Tom Cavanaugh? That just really muddies the water here, going, is this in the Arrowverse or not? It felt like the universe didn't want to commit one way or the other. Lastly, for my negatives, I don't want to hold it against the show, but it is the big gripe that I had, and it is the final season is incredibly rushed. It is not the writers or the actors' fault. It's just that the show got cut. They're lucky to even have had a 4th season. It's also supposed to have 7 seasons worth of content, not 4, and it really, really showed in the final season. A lot of things got so sped up. The 4th and final season is the death of Superman, but that happens over the span of maybe 3 episodes, and it's so rushed. Lex Luthor only really becomes the Lex Luthor that we know and hate in the final 2 episodes. Jonathan finally gets his powers, almost out of nowhere, because the plot demanded it, almost. There's a lot of stuff that I could see if we got the full 7 seasons, them stretching it out to make more sense, but we just didn't get that. So a lot of stuff had to be really, really sped up in the 4th and final season, and you just tell. It doesn't flow as smoothly as the first 3. I feel for the creative team. I understand that they had less to work with for their final season. Now, because I love so much of the show, it's actually kind of hard for me to nail down my favorite episodes, but when I really put my nose to the grindstone, I was able to come up with 3 episodes that for me always stood out. I'm going, okay, if I need to show someone this is what makes Superman and Lois special, these are the 3 episodes I would go with. It would be the pilot from season 1, the very first episode they ever showed, the first 5 to 10 minutes. If you can get on board with that and you really like that, I think you'll be locked in for the rest of the show. But the whole pilot establishes everything so perfectly. It sets up John Henry, it sets up the twins, but I think the best episode in season 1 was episode 11, more or less the flashback episode. This is classic Superman that I know we will never get, but I love it anyway. It almost harkens back to like the Max Fleischer cartoon era of Superman, a homemade suit that looks a little cheesy, but I love it so much. And seeing Lois and Superman's first interactions when she's interviewing him on the TV, and that is one of my favorite scenes of all time, of him speaking all these different languages, and she's like, is that a superpower? And he's like, no, just a general interest in the world. And she's like, how many languages do you speak? All of them. Because he wants to be a friend, and it just makes my heart happy. I'm going, that's something Superman would do. Oh, that episode just makes me so happy because it's classic Superman action and writing and just charming, and it just oozes cheese, and that's sometimes a good thing. And then lastly, the finale. I know I'm jumping way far ahead, but man, I was worried about the shortened 4th and final season, but when the finale hits, yeah, things kind of get resolved pretty quickly in the first half of it, but I was not expecting the waterworks in the second half of this. So again, spoiler alert here. When they said the 4th season of Death of Superman was going to be the main arc that they're going for, I was like, okay, cool. We're going to get the death and return of Superman. I didn't expect death, return, and death again of Superman. They basically spelled it out for you. Yeah, death of Superman, but a human death. The fact that he gets to live the rest of his life with his wife, gets to die a human, gets to live his life slowly but surely as a regular person. The story gets closure. Superman as a character so rarely ever gets closure. He's a comic book character. He always has to continue on somehow. It's why I think some of the best Superman stories, specifically All-Star Superman, are ones that have a definitive end. He so rarely ever gets that, and he gets a happy ending. It is the death of Superman, but it's a good death. It's a human death. He is not this all-powerful godly being. Sometimes he is, depending on the story, but he's also human, and he's allowed to rest and have a good life. And I was so impressed that Superman and Lois took that very ballsy direction to definitively kill off Superman and definitively give him the happy ending. There's no like leaving the door open for a sequel series or a spinoff. They straight up give him a goodbye, and I think that's super cool. Which leads us to our final segment of this retrospective, my favorite moments from Superman and Lois across all 4 seasons. Like I've already said, to death at this point, but the opening of Superman and Lois is one of my favorite montages, exposition scenes, whatever you want to call it, ever, whether that is movies or TV. It cuts straight to the heart of what makes Superman so special for so many people. I constantly have a smile on my face whenever I see that clip. And also, we don't talk nearly enough about how good Superman and Lois looks, like the cinematography, the color grading. It just looks chef's kiss. Sunsets and sunrises look different on Superman and Lois. It's fantastic. I love when Lois interviews Superman for the first time in episode 11. Like I mentioned, there's just this charm to both Clark and Superman. Clark is allowed to be a dorky character, and that smile, that's a classic Superman good guy smile and a charisma that I have missed from the character for a long time. And in pure just comic book awesomeness, I like the season 2 finale when Superman needs an extra little boost and basically gets thrown into the sun, and he comes back super ultra mode. And as he's flying back to Earth to save the day, he passes by all the supporting cast and they refer to him as they know him. So he flies past his sons and they go, Dad. He flies past Lois, Clark. He flies past the people of Smallville, Superman. It's basically what the show is. It's how he relates and interacts with all these people in his life and the impact that he makes. Then he's got this great shot where he flies up into the space, the stereotypical Superman shot, turns to the camera, and because he's powered by the sun and super powered, his S emblem is just radiating energy, and that is such cool shot. I also love, most of the time, that Superman does the action, but every once in a while, Clark gets in on the action, and when he does, it is incredibly memorable. Case in point, there's one episode where Lois and one of his kids gets threatened. So he's about to go and confront this guy, and Lois is like, no, we don't need to get Superman involved in this. And he's like, don't worry, he won't be. And I'm like, oh no, you didn't piss off Superman. You pissed off Clark. That's worse, actually. And it's this great, like, confrontation of going, you don't get to threaten my family, and seeing like the normally reserved and calm and mild-mannered Clark Kent just take no BS and stand up. I love the good adage of like demons flee when good men go to war. Like that, what happens when you push a good man a little bit too far? And he does it not in the Superman suit, as Clark just absolutely whoops this guy that, you know, was a horrible scumbag. Then we get to the 4th and final season. We circle back to that same spot in season 4, and this guy is coming after Clark, and he's convinced that Clark is Superman. And normally, I'm very much against Clark revealing his identity to the world. I think secret identities in comic books should mean something. So when Clark reveals his identity to everyone in that diner, and by proxy, everyone in Smallville and everyone in the world, that he is Superman, I was a little apprehensive, but the scene is so well done. There's this little bit of guilt in Tyler Hoechlin's face going, I feel bad that I've kept this secret for so long. I feel anxious that I'm letting go of this secret. I don't know how my life is going to change. I don't know how my family's life is going to change. But he's revealing his identity to protect those around him. It's a rock and a hard place. It is the unwinnable situation for the hero that we all really, really want to know what happens when a hero is put in. And Superman and Lois ask the question, what happens in that scenario? And Superman's willing to risk it all to protect people. And then to close out my favorite moments, I love that the opening of the show is a monologue from Clark talking about how he crash landed to Earth, how he grew up with the Kents, how he met a wonderful woman, had 2 kids, and basically became Superman. It was a monologue setting up the origin of Superman. And I love that the show ends with a monologue of Clark narrating his death, of talking about what happens after. The happiness, the joy, the forgiveness that comes with finding peace. It was such a beautiful bookend of this, how the series starts with the origin of Superman, and the bookend of the finale of this is how Superman's story ends in this universe. He's allowed peace. He's allowed rest, something that so rarely happens in comic books, where the story has to keep going. You got to keep telling what's happening next. What's the next big adventure? This version of Superman was allowed to be with Lois forever. And I think it's so beautifully done. I cannot sing this show's praises enough. This to me is the definitive Superman story. I love what Tyler Hoechlin brought to the table. I love what Elizabeth Tulloch brought to the table as Lois. I just enjoy this show so much as a Superman fan. It was so rewarding. I wish we could have gotten more, but I understand why we didn't. And I'm thankful for the little bit that we got to spend. And as a Superman fan, now that this is behind us, I just look forward to the future and hope that James Gunn's Superman knocks it out of the park. But it's got a very high bar it's got to live up to. But what do you guys think? Have you seen Superman and Lois? Were you a big fan of the show? Have you not checked it out yet? In which case, I've spoiled all of it for you. Whatever your thoughts, let me know down in the comments below. It's like hearing from you guys. And as always, if you like what you see and want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.